Hey everybody, it's your girl PC and DC. In my very last upload, I shared with you all the plant that was easiest for me to grow in the garden, and that was the wonderful pepper. It seems only right that I share with you now the one that has been the most challenging for me, and that has been the tomato. What you're looking at here is my tomato TP. I put all of my tomato seedlings in this TP to grow, and in the beginning, everything was going just great. I didn't have a problem, everything was growing fine. I surrounded the teepee with mosquito netting to protect it from, the hurtful, harmful pests, like the tomato hornworm and, all the other things. So it's been working, having the tomatoes inside of the teepee for a little bit. Wrapped with mosquito netting has been a great move. So that was a good decision on my part. Everything was growing beautifully. They were beginning to flower. They were beginning to make, little tomatoes. And then I noticed something. They started growing taller. And I remember this is the same thing that happened last year where they would grow straight up 6, 8, 10 feet, but they weren't very wide. In the beginning, when I started gardening, they were about maybe 3 feet tall, 2 feet wide, and they were more like bushes. But now, due to the way these seeds are being genetically modified, hybrid type seeds, they're just growing straight up now, and they need a lot of support. So, they need tomato cages, and they need trellising, and they need, strings and things to help keep them upright, but they just grow so tall. At the time I had all of my tomatoes growing in the teepee, I didn't realize I had 10 pots. I had given away maybe half a dozen tomato plants, but I didn't realize I had so many. So, just looking at it every single time I went out into the garden, it was just easier for me to just focus on something else. And all the while they were continuing to grow, continuing to fruit. And so I said, okay, let me try and do something, because the branches and everything were becoming tangled, and I was just afraid that, I was going to end up losing some of the plants. And that's not something that I wanted to do. I'd worked too hard to grow them. So I used pipe cleaners to kind of stand them upright and to give them that support. And that lasted. It worked for a little while because they continued growing as the rainstorms and all the things continued. So here we are. They're continuing to grow. They're getting more and more full. They're pushing their way out of the tomato teepee. I knew I had to make a move. So I pulled everything out, and that's when I realized I had 10 pots. So pulled everything out, and I addressed each plant one by one individually. And at the end, I realized that I could only fit right now 5 inside of the teepee, and I had to spread the other 5 around the garden, outside, uncovered, unprotected. So we'll see how this goes. That one there, that was the largest one, so I had to sit it on top of my flower bed. The tulip bulbs are underground, so the tomatoes just going to sit on top of that soil for a little bit. But look at this. That is so bad. Oh my goodness, they were suffering in there, but they were continuing to produce for me. They were trying to give me tomatoes, and since they were trying to work for me, I decided I'm going to work for them. I'm going to take care of them, and that's what I'm doing. Have I got it all figured out right now? No. Am I trying? Yes. I'll keep you posted.